Hi, this is the help video for Access Chapter 7, Prepare Case B. We're starting at step number 9, and we're continuing our exploration of SQL. So in step number 9, we're introducing a couple new things. One is this aggregate where we're summing a value, and then the as statement here is how we rename something. So the sum of quantity is going to be called total when it's viewed. Then the group by is how, just like in our when we're looking at our grid in design view, that's group by is exactly what we would have done before, group by. And then having is used to retrieve records after the query. So it's basing this having is the sum of quantity, not quantity, right? So we're taking the sum of quantity and then we're comparing that to greater than 5. So it becomes a little bit, not a little bit, it becomes much more complex. So I'm going to start a new query in design. I'm going to switch over to SQL, but I'm going to do it in this so we can see it a little better. So we're going to start off how we normally begin our SQL. Whoops. So we just have our select statement, right? So select. And then what are we selecting? We're selecting customer ID, purchase date, product ID, and then when we want to get a total of something, we actually put in the select statement sum of quantity, and then as renames it to total. So that is different than what we've done, right? So here, and I'm going to flip over to the grid so you can see what this is doing. We're taking quantity and we're totaling, we're summing it, we're adding them all together, and then we're renaming it with the as statement. Then we want to tell from table purchase, and then group by customer ID, purchase date, and product ID. So if we were adding a total row onto our grid, we would, each of these fields would say group by, group by, group by. Then we're going to do having the sum of quantity greater than 5, semicolon. So this is saying some quantity, and based on that sum, only return those that are greater than 5. See, that's different than the where. If I did where quantity greater than 5, it would look at each individual record. This is looking at that aggregate value. So I'm going to copy this and put it into here, and let's see what happens. See if it works. So I should get just the soap. So let's look at the grid and see what we created, right? So look, we understand what we just did. We just are doing it in a different way. Look, we brought all of the fields down. We renamed quantity, so that's that as statement. We did group by, group by, group by, right? We did a sum of quantity, and then this one, you see how it's not showing? This is how the having statement is done. We're taking quantity, and the sum of it has to be greater than 5. That's what that SQL has given us. And it works. So let's save it. QRY, large purchase customers, SQL. Customers, okay. So one of the things, if you get stuck doing the SQL, you can go to the grid and use it, do it the way, but if you do it, please go back and look at how it affected your SQL and how that is created. All right, so we're done with that one. We can close that. Let's look at step number 10. Okay, so small invoice SQL. So let's see what we're doing for that one. So in this one, we're doing similar, right? We're going to do table invoice, invoice number, invoice date, and then we're getting a total for amount due, and we're going to rename it, and then customer ID. We're going to group by, and a having where the amount is less than or equal to 25. So it's really the exact same process that we just did, only some different values. So let's practice it. We're going to go into query SQL, and then I'm going to just come over to my Notepad++. All right, so first thing is always select statement, and then you list. So we want invoice number, comma, invoice date, comma. Then we're doing the sum of amount due, and then as total, that's the new name we're giving it, right? And then customer ID. So the only thing weird or different in that is this. This is saying we're doing a total of amount due, and we're renaming it as total. That's from TBL invoice, group by, right? We have a sum here in aggregate, so we're going to have the group by invoice number, invoice date, and then customer ID. Having, so this is how we're going to qualify it for the aggregate value having less than or equal to 25. So we're saying the sum of amount due has to be less than or equal to 25, semicolon. So I'm going to copy that over into my grid, into my SQL, and see if it runs. Cool, it worked. So we only have those customers whose total purchases are less than or equal to 25. So if I look at what my grid looks like in design view, right, you can relate to what we just did. Here's the fields, not that one. See, that's the having. Here's the rename of amount due total, but here's the sum. Here's our group by statements, group by, and then this is the having, where the sum of amount due must be less than or equal to 25. So what we do on this grid you can directly see how it is listed in your SQL. All right, so this is called Small Invoices SQL. And I am going to stop there because the next one, we're going to start looking at joins. And so it's something we've done since the first week of class, but we haven't looked at it in terms of the SQL and how to build that. So I'm going to start that in the next movie. All right, thank you.